Welcome to another episode of the Dentology podcast, where we discuss the business of dentistry. In this podcast series, we'll be discussing all the non-clinical aspects of dentistry, from goodwill values, finance, marketing, how to buy and sell a dental practice mindset, through to where you can invest your money in team management issues. My name is Andy Acton, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Strevens. Let's jump straight into it. Welcome to another edition of Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. And today we're talking to Tim Molony. How you doing, Tim?
Very good, guys. You
are? Hi, Tim.
Hello, Chris.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. I know you're a very busy guy. I'll do my introduction and then I'll let you do your introduction. But for my part, Tim's the Digital Director of FMC, which is the leading communications provider in dentistry. But so much more. A serial entrepreneur. He started numerous business startups. CompareTheTreatment.com, which is a patient education website for elective dental treatments, and also Full Circle, which is a Planet Positive festival survival kit. And I use that myself. I went to Glastonbury a couple of years ago, and it's brilliant. It's like a pack, and it's got everything you need. It's got stuff to keep you clean, stuff to keep your mouth fresh. It's got loo roll, and like I said, it's all Planet Positive. So that was great. So we'll find out a little bit more about that. But we're talking today about goal setting, and the reason that you make a great guest and someone to talk to about this is because of the adventures you've done yourself. You've done a marathon, you've done a triathlon, you did the SAS Fan Dance, and you're training to go up Kilimanjaro. And I'd really like to dig into kind of what sort of mindset that takes, and how you've got to that position where you need a goal, you set yourself challenges, and you always want to make sure that you're succeeding and moving forward. So welcome, Tim. Are you having a good day so far?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, did a board meeting this morning.
Nice.
Through FMC up in Hertfordshire.
Cool. You mustn't forget world-class surf, dude.
Oh, well, that predates your dentistry days, didn't it?
Many a year ago. Yeah.
I mean, on that point, I mean, I know we're going to talk about goal setting, but, you know, when you were a young lad in your youth, which doesn't look that long ago because you're a very young-looking guy at the moment, but let's just pass over how many years we went back. Was there a conscious decision on your part? Have you always been the sort of person that kind of has a plan for what you're doing? And when you travelled around the world surfing and having fun, was there a plan that sat behind that as well? Or was that just fun?
No, I mean, that was purely fun. I mean, I wasn't mad for school. I kind of wanted to quit after GCSEs, but then ended up doing A-levels. And me and a couple of pals of mine, we very rarely turned up to A-levels, which I don't condone. And I ended up actually quitting the Christmas before my exams.
Right.
And I just wanted to go traveling, just wanted to go, around the world surfing and stuff. So I ended up working on a building site to earn some money.
Okay.
But my parents are both teachers, so they knew my head of sixth form, a guy called Mr. Wolfo or something like that, and showed how much I turned up. He was the sixth form. Anyway,
completely forgotten.
Yeah, completely forgot his name. Began with W. And so they ended up speaking with him, and I think they knew that my heart really wasn't in it, and I wasn't, that into sort of completing it. But he actually said, look, Tim's going to get some grades here. If you can convince him to come back, he'll end up getting something. And then obviously he's got a path to university or whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
So my parents actually said, well, look, work on the building site over Christmas, save some money. And what we'll do is we'll pay for your around the world trip if you complete your exams.
Oh, wow.
Take them. So, back in those days, I think it was like 1,200 quid for 11 stops around the world. So actually then after the building site and New Year came, I went back to A-levels.
So entrepreneurial skills, even at such a young age of do this and I'll get this.
But also I think in something like that, I know we're kind of straying off down kind of into sort of the education path, but education is one of those things that you can learn so many things in so many different ways. I'm sure your continuing education of going around the world and making you aware of what the world looks like and an awareness of other people and living in other cultures, that's an education in itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas our traditional learning system is we sit in classrooms and we learn stuff, and actually 95% of it we're never going to use again. But I guess when you need a curriculum to cope with 60 plus million people, you have to have a structure. Whereas if that structure doesn't work for you, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a guy who's not smart. It just means that you go about things in a different way. Because I think I'm probably in that same category as you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I don't think school is for everyone. I know Stephen Bartlett, who you listen to quite a bit, and I listen to quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a talk at Cambridge University the other day and said about university. Literally at Cambridge University in front of all the students, and said, don't, unless you're going to become a doctor or a real core subject like that. He was like, go out, get an apprenticeship. So for me, I would advocate. I mean, I didn't want to go to university. The only reason I went off travelling. Literally, my last exam was on the Friday. I was pretty much on a plane Saturday morning off to Canada, then to Hawaii. But where I was meeting a lot of people, they had done university, because the normal route is GCSEs, A-levels, university, then you go travelling, then you go get a job. Whereas obviously I did it slightly different, that I went off, opened my eyes to other cultures, experiences, and then I realised I wanted to go to university. And I probably went to university maybe a little bit, I'd already had that independence of seeing different things. Whereas I think a lot of people, you go from mummy and daddy straight into university, a pound of vodka Red Bull, and then 4 years later, you finish and you can't quite remember it. And so, for me, if I was to say to my kids, if they wanted to go to university, I would probably advocate, try something, go travelling, experience things, then you'll go to university a little bit wiser with what you want to do. So, it was a very, very good experience.
Well, it sounds like it. So on the goal setting, we've known one another for quite a few years, and whenever we meet up or whenever we talk, you've always got like a big thing that's about to happen. Like I say, when you're training for the marathon or the triathlon or the fan dance, and I know it's been pushed back a little bit because of where we are, but Kilimanjaro, are you somebody who just gets restless and feels uneasy if you don't have a big thing that you're striving for? Because you're a really motivated, focused guy. And on a work level, you always know exactly what's going on. You're really on it. But outside of that, do you feel this need to have this kind of draw? Do you need to be working towards something all the time?
I think, the challenges that I do every year, I think, it's to keep focus. I think we can all get caught up. We all work very hard. Then you've got family life. And I think, to have a focus physically and mentally, something to aim for, will for me, it keeps that structure, keeps me something to work towards. I think part of it's probably, as I'm getting older, testing myself mentally and physically to see the limits of where I can go. So obviously I did the ultra marathon last September. And it's just seeing how far I can physically push my body and my mind, probably before I keel over and die. But
I think it's you're probably familiar with Carol Dweck and her book Mindset, about growth mindset and fixed mindset. And years ago, I met Ben Fogel. I went to an event and he was there, and he was talking about. He's incredible guy, and. He's similar in that school didn't work for him. He's an adventurer. He wanted to get out and learn and do things. And I was talking to him about he climbed Everest, and he was saying that he physically he was worn out, but he was saying it was mentally the bit that kept struggling. And they stopped, and he had a cup of tea. And when he drank the cup of tea, it was too hot, and he burnt his lip, and it blistered. And it threw him over the edge, because he said, whilst it was a really minor physical imperfection, he knew at those extreme temperatures, the risk was that would be the end of his chance of getting to the summit. And he said that his mind, he really had to reset himself because he started to freak out. And I said to him, so is it the physical or the mental thing? And he said, every challenge is done. And he's rode across the Atlantic and climbed Everest and did all sorts. And he said, every time your mind is the thing that you have to work hardest to keep on track. Your body will keep 100%,
going. 100%. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the fittest guy in the world physically, but when you're doing something like that, I almost just go into a zone, and you just, I suppose I probably like doing them as well because you don't think about anything else. You're like, literally, you've got a start line, you've got a finish line, and you just get your head in it and you do it. And, definitely the last few things I've done, I'd say that vast majority. You've got to be in a physical condition, otherwise you can't do it. But the difference is the mind. And obviously you look at top level footballers or anything, or sports people, the rest is the mind. The Premiership players, they've all got talent. To get to that level, they are all brilliant footballers. But the difference between your Ronaldo, your Messi, your Kane is that work rate, work effort, and the final few percent up.
And two are brilliant.
You wouldn't want Harry Kane at Arsenal.
We probably wouldn't be able to get a crossing.
He would just bang on him from the halfway line. No need for a cross.
We can only live in hope.
Well,
for England, he doesn't score, but for the mighty Spurs,
he does some cracking stuff.
Yeah,
so when you set a goal, I've got this thing with a goal. It kind of feels to me like it needs to be high enough to inspire you, but low enough to encourage you to do it. So have you dreamt up things that you've discounted? You've gone, it's too much. It's not achievable at the moment. Because like I say, I think some people have goals that just feel so outrageous. It's perhaps beyond them and just feels unachievable.
Or underwhelmed when you've achieved it. And I'm just thinking here, we did a fire walk because, like a fire walk is like, fire walk. You're going to walk over fires. You're going to really test yourself, test your mental acuity and strength. When we did it, it was like, oh, okay. It wasn't quite as bonkers as I thought it was going to be. But you sort of get yourself into this mood, don't you? What you're going to achieve, and then when you actually get to it, have you had an experience whereby it was actually it wasn't really quite as I thought it was going to be? Because I can tell you, Firewalk was definitely not what I thought it was going to be.
No, that's very true.
I think it's knowing what you can do and what you can't do, and I've got fairly limited time to be able to train for these things, so I've got to have some level of ability. I can swim, but I wouldn't swim the channel because the amount I believe I probably could if I didn't work, and I absolutely set my mind. I believe I could do it, but the amount of hours in training I would have to do to accomplish that, I just physically couldn't do it at this time in my life because of work, business, family, everything like that. So, no, I absolutely agree, Andy, that, goals are the biggest motivator, but they're also the biggest demotivator if you don't get it right. And that I think is in work and not. In terms of have I been underwhelmed, I don't. I do things to tick it off. I'll never do them again. Like you get these serial marathon runners. I was running up on the Lake District with these ultra marathon guys, and we're running, and they're like, "Yeah, this is like my 60th," and I'm thinking, I'm never going to do this again. And you are stupid, absolute nutters. I'm finishing this. I'm going for a beer, and that's it.
So that's intriguing that you just want to put a tick in the box. So there's motivation to meet the goal. There's commitment to do the training and get there. But once you've got there, it's done. So
then you've got to do something else. So Kilimanjaro is something I've always wanted to do. I want to cycle Land's End to John O'Groats. So that will be the one after next year. There's I want to motorbike the length of Africa. So that will be probably a couple of years after that. So I've probably got a 5 to 6 year bucket list of what I'm going to do every year. but it's definitely attainable things that I can do within my current life circumstance.
I suppose that's a really good thing. It's like a bucket list, isn't it? Of things I want to achieve, rather than I'm going to set myself a test. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm going to sort of go, right, well, I want to be able to do this. And as you say, motorbike from whatever, what was it, long way round and long way up or something?
Oh, yeah.
With you and McGregor.
Charlie Paul.
Yeah. I mean, I watch that. I mean, for me, I'm not a big materials person. I mean, you guys know me, I'm more experiences. When I get older, I want to look back and think, you know what, I've been there, I've done that, I've experienced that. They're the kind of memories that I personally want. And I suppose that's why I kind of every year set something.
And outside of you as an individual, obviously you're managing a team of people in your business, and you've had people in your own enterprises. Do you carry that kind of driven goal setting mindset through to business as well? Are you constantly setting big and small goals? It's just a way of being, as opposed to something you do personally and not in business.
No, 100%. I mean, at FMC, I mean, we're all going through a bit of a transition with COVID. I mean, obviously, your business, every business has been affected, and media has massively shifted, towards digital. I mean, look at what we're doing now. 18 months ago, would we be doing this? Who knows? Webinars, virtual events. So, I mean, thankfully, we had already started on that digital transformation. I mean, I rejoined FMC September 2019. So we had a development roadmap already that we had embarked on. And then COVID hit, obviously, March time. So we were sort of 6-7 months into it. But yeah, we set the team, have individual goals, but then we have a collective goal as a team of what we want to do. And then, that some of the parts make up the whole. So I think whenever you're trying to, set a vision and take people on a journey, you've got to set that course. You've got to set the goals. People need to understand what their job is within that. Yeah. And then, they're on board for it. You never get on a boat with a captain that says, I don't know where we go in and don't know how much food we've got.
But also, I think it's a more fulfilling environment. I mean, they've done research around kind of goal setting, and it does improve well-being. It improves happiness, and it's a measurable success. People have improved success as a result of it. And I think it goes back to what you just said about, you kind of want to know where you're going, don't you?
Well, if you don't set a goal, how do you know you've achieved? Isn't it? So, as you say, what direction? Is that great one, isn't it? How do I get to Scotland? But it depends where you start. And if you don't have that direction, guidelines or whatever it is, you will never know what you achieved, didn't achieve, how you got there. Because actually, I think, I can't remember this, I'm sure someone said it, that thing, it's not so much about the destination, it's about the journey. Yeah. That's the exciting bit, is how did you get from A to B? Was it via Z?
Nowadays, I think we live in a world, I mean, I was talking to Craig about it earlier today, that, obviously we live in a social media influencer world, and people look at, Floyd Mayweather and people like that have achieved huge, Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, I watched his thing on Amazon the other day. They just see the destination. They don't see the hard work or the journey. Yeah. And the kids nowadays, they want to be YouTube stars. They want to be crypto stars. They don't want to work for it. And if you don't enjoy the journey, you'll never get to the destination.
And I don't think social media helps, because nobody sees that it takes you 20 years to become an overnight success.
100%.
But isn't it? Everybody just sees, they look at you online and go, wow, that's amazing. I'll have one of those. And they don't see all the grind and the graft and the hard work and everything that took place in the background. Yeah. But also, I think that if you get the environment right, the money part of work doesn't become as important. I think if you're in an inspiring environment where you're working towards goals, there was some research done back in 1979 by Latham and Locke, and they realised that if all you gave people was a monetary reward, as opposed to a reward that was linked to achieving goals, people were much happier. in that environment because
was that not orange packing?
Sorry,
was that the orange packing?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, where there was stimulation that went around the work, and it's not just about money. And do you follow the kind of, perhaps more so in work than in your own life, but they cross over, the kind of traditional method of setting a goal? I think the mnemonic's SMART, isn't it?
Yes, that we love.
Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. Do you kind of go through that logic when you're thinking of something to do, or is that a bit scientific?
I mean, we sort of create SMART plans for Ken within our department. So on a more overarching level, we will do a SMART plan for Ken. On a team level, everyone knows their job within it, and we set individual goals based upon their task. But it's important that you get their buy-in. So it's joint goal setting. It's not me sitting there going, right, guys, next year I want to do 1 million users.
Well, that's not a goal, is it? That's an imposition of a target.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it
reminds me of the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really just getting their buy-in, working on it together, and breaking up. When you run the marathon, you don't just look at 26 point whatever miles. You sit there and go, right, 5 miles, where do I want to be? 10 miles, where do I want to be? And just making sure, like you said, that they're achievable so people are motivated. If Ken turned around to me and said, Tim, next year I want you to do X revenue, and it's completely unachievable.
Yeah, well, it's a massive demotivator, isn't it?
That's not even going to get me off the start line, because I'm just sitting there going, what is the point?
Yeah.
And what sort of thing for the guys that are listening who maybe don't set goals, don't set, engage their team on your team that you use, Tim? What sort of rewards do you give people for when they achieve their goals? The range that you've got, because it's not always about money and it's not always about big things, is it?
Yeah, I mean, we are, we've got a really good team. I mean, my guys are absolutely incredible. And I think business nowadays is so intricate that, you all need to be firing because it's so interconnected. So Seb could be the best writer, but if I'm a really poor sales guy, I can't sell the advertising on there. If I sell a load of advertising, Kay doesn't copy chase it properly and we muck up there. If Amy's the greatest social media, but the content's crap. So, they're all bought into it. And, we just try and create a team. So we went to Junkyard Golf.
Yeah, that's good fun, isn't it?
That's great
really
fun.
Good fun. So, we try and do team things like that. And, there's the odd little incentive, monetary and bits and pieces. But, like you said, Andy, money isn't the ultimate driver. If you're happy with what you do, I mean, obviously you've got to be recompensed for your worth. But, I think you can get, other factors.
Yeah. I think a stimulating environment. I always think of Virgin Atlantic. It's routinely quoted that, Virgin Atlantic pay way below market rate. However, what you get is you get the Virgin experience. So you get the fun of being associated with Richard Branson, and you get extras that go with Virgin that you probably wouldn't get in other organisations, and they know that people want to be associated with that brand. So they actually can pay below market rate.
Yeah, because there's other benefits.
Because of the other things that come with it. And I think that kind of says to me that up to a point, money is really important, but you also want to be in a stimulating environment that on a daily basis is a great place to be, and it's fun.
You spend more time with your work colleagues than anyone else, don't you, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're doing very, very well on digital. So we've got some great momentum going. They're involved in the ideas a lot and the development of the product, so they feel a part of something. Yeah, and that's a big motivator. The guys are really, really good. Really good.
And so so obviously Kilimanjaro was originally booked to happen in 2020?
August. No, 14th of August this year.
Oh, it was this year?
Yeah, we were due to go in, a couple of months.
Right, so that's been kicked off to 2022?
Pushed back to 15th of February.
Right. Okay. And how's the training going?
Haven't started yet.
Pleased to hear it.
What's the difference in weather?
I thought we were just talking about goal setting and how you're on track and everything was going so well.
Yeah. It's a while away.
What's the difference in temperature between an August trip and a February trip?
What's the difference in what? Sorry?
What's the difference in temperature between an August trip and a February trip, do you reckon?
It's so they have a wet season and a dry season. That's it. So there is no difference from the actual point of view, because where they're positioned, it's pretty much the same kind of temperature.
So are you going up now in wet or going up in dry? No,
we're going up in dry. Yeah. So the wet season is in between. So the wet, I think, starts around April and runs to like June, July. So we were just going to go in the new dry season. Then it goes wet, and then it will go dry again. But when we're going, it's fairly busy.
Right.
But that's the only time, because obviously FMC, we get pretty busy September through December, because you're sort of working with everybody on their sort of future plans. And next summer, we've already got plans, so I sort of had to sneak it in and play. But yeah, no, I've got some altitude training. So my wife bought me some altitude training. So you jump in a tank.
Oh, nice!
Wow,
not a very big ladder then.
Yeah.
I mean, we joke about when you said you hadn't started your training, and we laugh. But is there a time-based training plan for this? Because many years ago, I ran a marathon. And basically, I didn't have a training plan. All I did is I went out twice a week. I ran further and further distance till eventually I got to about 21 miles.
I thought if I could do 21 miles,
exactly that. I thought if I can run 21 miles, I'll be fine on the day. And as it turned out, it was fine on the day. It was an amazing experience and everything else. But that wasn't really a training plan. So is there a kind of a design training plan that kicks in at some point to make sure that you have a good experience?
Yeah. So I mean, the thing with obviously high altitude is the sickness. So that's the biggest factor. It's actually, I mean, the one that we're doing is one of the quieter routes, and it's over 8 days. So you actually start right at the base in the jungle, and it's supposed to be the most beautiful because you see all the monkeys and everything and through the jungle, and then you work your way up. So the biggest factor that will be affecting isn't necessarily your fitness. You know, Chris Moyles legged it up there. It's whether you can, adjust to high altitude.
Right. Yeah.
So obviously I will be doing, running. We'll probably go and climb Snowdon or something like that. But it's really getting up into the chamber and then jumping on a treadmill with a big on my face.
Getting used to it.
Yeah, and just seeing where we go from there. But the ultra marathon I did get a personal trainer who actually did a plan for me, and that was 4 days a week, finishing with a big old run on a Sunday. That was an eating plan, and stuff like that. So something of that magnitude, I did take very seriously because it's quite full on. But I envisage for Kili, it's just my body's like at 20,000 foot.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been great. I've really enjoyed the conversation today. It's been really good. And like I say, the idea of this podcast is to try to give people nuggets of information that they can then draw into their own world, into their life, but also into their business. And I think there's been some real gold in there in terms of that focus, goal setting, having a vision, but also importantly, having the commitment to follow it through to make sure that you see the results that come at the end of it.
I think that one of the key things with you, Tim, is that you're an ordinary bloke. And I don't mean that rudely, but, you're a normal guy who's achieved a lot, and you're very focused and driven. So I think it gives hope to people who, quite often all this sort of like the guru stuff, isn't it, by famous people, and people are like, well, I can't be that famous person. But when it's a normal, ordinary person, you can say, well, actually, they've been extraordinary in how they've delivered and what they've done and their mindset, and you've just sort of said, well, I do this and I did this and then I followed this. And it sounds simple, but it's not simple.
But in many
it makes
ways,
people think, oh, maybe I could do that.
I think it's inspiring in itself because it says that it's achievable. You know, there's no magic ingredient. You don't need to be a superhero. What you need is to apply yourself. And if you apply yourself like you can have amazing results.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
for anybody listening to this that wants to improve or wants more structure or more focus, they could apply some great principles of the stuff that we've talked about and bring those improvements themselves. There's no magic bullet for it. And that should be inspiring, that it's open and available to anybody.
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate enough to find something in FMC that I enjoy, and that I work with great people. I'm quite good at what I do within the business, So obviously, it's easy to sit there and say this. You guys really enjoy what you do, and you've been hugely successful. And obviously, the people need to find what their thing is. And
for me, though, Tim, I think it's also applying yourself. I think the fact you've applied yourself, I always remember saying to someone, when I first joined a bank many, many years ago, when people used to write checks, the job that I had in the morning, along with 3 other colleagues, was putting them into alphabetical order, which I can assure you is not the most mentally stimulating job in the world. But I was really good at it because I wanted to make sure that I was really good at putting those checks into alphabetical order. And you're just reinforcing the fact that it's about not so much what you do, but it's more the fact of the way you do it and the way you apply yourself. And I think that is the really important thing of saying, look, even if it is something you don't particularly like, then you've got a choice, haven't you? You either do it well and then move on, or you don't do it, or you do it badly.
And for me, I don't, I've never seen the point in doing something and not doing it well. Even if I'm going to go and have a kickabout with the mates on the park when I was younger, I would absolutely have a great game. Literally, like
broken legs, people kicked.
But literally, it just doesn't comprehend me to sort of go there and sort of pansy about a bit and not run as fast as like.
I bet at home. I bet if you have a game of Twister at home, I bet you win all the time.
It does get a bit competitive. But my wife's really competitive as well. So it's,
you wait until your kids get older.
Yeah. Well, Henry's a very good sportsman. So they're all very competitive. Yeah.
Just to finish up, Tim, we ask our guests a couple of questions at the end. So, if you could meet anyone, who would you like to meet? They can be living, they could have passed on, they could be real, they could be fictional. Who would you like to meet?
So I've put Jeff Bezos.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. Before or after divorce?
These just fascinates me that 27 years ago he set up a bookstore. What was his vision when he set up that bookstore? Was it to set up a bookstore, or was it I'm going to become the richest guy in the world, I'm going to go into space, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to be the largest reseller online of absolutely everything? Like, how was that journey? What were the breaks? Did he get lucky? For me, that would be a fascinating conversation.
I agree. I think he'd be an interesting guy. I think that quite often people that have, the success like he's had is up there with only 1 or 2 other people on the planet. And I would imagine that success just kept growing and getting bigger and bigger. And I don't think he could have ever imagined that Amazon would look like it does now. There
must have been failures along the way, mustn't there?
Yeah, of course.
They're definitely, obviously there would have been. It's just pretty. Pretty crazy that.
Yeah. And our last question is, if you could be a fly on the wall in a situation with somebody, what scenario would you love to have just been sat there and just watching a situation unfold?
I would like to be a constant fly on the wall in Area 51.
But it doesn't exist, so you can't go there.
You can look at satellite images.
We're not going to talk about aliens now.
No.
Yeah, no. Just of interest. You know, I've not got any burning desires to be anywhere, but if you could just sort of have a little peek to see what's going on.
Yeah, well, so it's masked in such secrecy. We know so little about it. Just have a little peek behind the curtain would be quite nice, wouldn't it?
In fact, that was them just after you.
Exactly. As soon as you mentioned Area 51, they're on the phone. Who's this Tim bloke? What do you want? I've heard you coming to see us.
Yeah. Have you watched Independence Day?
Yeah.
There you go. See, Andy, science fiction. Don't worry about it, mate.
No. So I'm struggling to hear you, Chris.
Yeah. I'm not a big
science fiction fan.
Forget it.
Not at all.
Good film.
Lovely, Tim. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. I know you're a busy guy. That's been really good, and I'm sure the listeners will take a lot from this. So really appreciate it.
Great fun.
Thanks, Tim.
Lovely.
Cheers.
Cheers,
man. Take care.
Cheers, Stella. I really enjoyed our chat with Tim.
He's such a lovely bloke.
He's such a nice guy and so modest, but his ability to set goals and challenges, but also commit to that goal. Yeah, he plays it down as if it's an easy thing and it's no big deal. It's extraordinary behaviour.
He's a serial doer.
Yes. Yeah.
Which fascinating. It's interesting. I think to myself, I wonder how many people knew about his surfing. And we didn't even get to talk about the festival pack and that sort of stuff. He's a very thoughtful, committed go-getter. I know it sounds a bit of a naff word, but he sees something, he goes, he achieves, he does it.
And that setting goals that are high enough to inspire you, but low enough to encourage you. He found a nice balance between the things that he was doing, and they're stretchy things, but they're stretchy by his measurement. But I took from that lots of other people can learn that they can also set themselves goals. Yeah, might not necessarily be as ambitious, but they would work for them. Yeah. And he articulated that in a really good way.
It might not be Kilimanjaro, it might be Brecon Beacons or something, or Luton Hoo or whatever it is.
And also the power of that link between setting goals, well-being, happiness and success. It was really powerful that all those things are connected.
Yeah.
I was really enjoyable.
Really good. Really good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.